Hello there, Stanley Carr here. I love collecting music and sports memorabilia. Want to know where you can find some? I'll tell you. Go to oldglory.com. This website features one-of-a-kind apparel from your favorite sports teams and musical artists. And I can help you get 15% off of all items. Use the code WWH135. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show. And with me right now, I've got a very special guest. He has competed for numerous promotions, including the WWE, WCW, ECW, and worked on the independent scene. I am pleased to welcome the one and only Salvatore Sincere, a.k.a. Tom Brandi. Welcome, Tom, to Wrestling with Heart.
Thank you, Stanley. I appreciate you having me.
It's my pleasure. So talk to me about your childhood and upbringing. Where are you from?
I grew up outside of Philadelphia. I still live in the same pretty much general vicinity, suburbs. And, just pretty much grew up, wanted to be a wrestler from the time I was probably 5 years old.
Wow.
I mean, that's pretty much the long and short of it. It was like, long time ago, but I always wanted to be a pro wrestler.
So fan since childhood, earliest memories of watching pro wrestling?
Well, we would go to the Allentown. Well, it started with the Philadelphia Arena and also Allentown Agricultural Hall and Hamburg for the tapings. I was probably around, I'd say probably around 11, 10, 11, 12. And then I was I was a photographer. Like there was two or three guys there that had the zoom lenses and they sat at ringside. And I was like, decided that's what I wanted for Christmas that year. We go back to about 1980 is when it started. And I pretty much have, a lot of the pictures made the magazines. And I pretty much have, everything to this day from what I shot, a lifetime ago.
Any particular matches that you recall taking pictures of?
We were at, when Larry Zbyszko turned on Bruno Sammartino and all the angles of the early 80s, Jimmy Snuka turning babyface, Ray Stevens turning on him. And, we're going back a long time with, just Bruno Sammartino was my idol. And then the feuds with Billy Graham. And then it was Bob Backlund and, just everybody from that point on.
Yeah, this was like the early 80s, late 70s, still in that territory era, classic WWF, WWF era.
Yes, correct.
So that was a huge time to be a fan because this was in that old school, like if you really love pro wrestling, like at its core, this is the kind of wrestling you want to watch. So
that's the truth. I mean, that was, I was very impressed and, you just made you know what you wanted to be, what you wanted to do. So, I mean, we are of Italian descent. So that made Bruno Sammartino an easy choice as a favorite. And, I just always, always felt that way from day one.
What was it about Bruno Sammartino, like his style, that you were just so fascinated by?
He was Italian and he was a champion. So, I mean, you don't have to go much further than that. Just the way he was. I mean, my dad loved him. I loved him. And it was just one from there.
And he had like a record-breaking title run too for like a long time.
Yeah, he had the title. I mean, it was like a 6-year run. He lost it, then he won it back again. So, I mean, probably about 10 years total between both runs.
It's crazy.
You couldn't do that now. You just too much. It's a faster lifestyle now. You can never do that now. I mean, they want to see a new champ every few months.
Yeah, I mean, Roman Reigns had a pretty legendary title run going for 4.5 years. with wrestling guys like Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso, just to name a few of the guys that he wrestled against. But never really, other than that, have we really had such a long title reign, such as the one that Bruno had. He was selling out arenas, and people came. He was a draw.
Well, what bothers me the most about the current day wrestling, like the fans just sit on their hands. I mean, when you would watch the old school videos, these, the second they start walking to the ring, and there was no ring music or anything, the place would absolutely go unglued. It would absolutely go between the Garden, Madison, like Boston Garden, Madison Square, Philadelphia Spectrum, like anything on the East Coast. When you watch that now, and I mean, people believed it. They were just absolutely locked in, and you cheered the good guys and booed the bad guys, and it was just a different time and different place.
Things evolve. Wrestling has evolved with the times. It's changed every so often with the looks, the aesthetics. It changes. The roster changes. Different
Everything
guys
does.
come
Any
in.
sport, I mean, anything in this world, whether it's the kind of car you drive, kind of job you have. I mean, obviously look at the social media era, pre-social media, and today is just, you can't compare it to anything else.
It's different. So this is what you wanted to do since childhood. Eventually, you start looking up schools and find out, how do I get into wrestling? What's your story with trying to figure out how to get experience?
Well, there was no schools back then. I started around 85. So, I mean, there was a local independent wrestler that I heard of, and I heard of a gym that he worked out at. His name is King Kalua, and he still wrestles to this day, and on the East Coast. And me and one of my best friends were looking to join a gym right out of high school, summer of 84. And we joined that gym and became friends. And we've been friends for over 40 years ever since.
It's amazing to have those
Training in the
long.
backyard on top of mattresses and dirt and grass. And that's how you learn back then. There was, no schools. The Monster Factory was the only established open school, but that was too far. It was too far away to join there. So, if there wasn't King Kalua, maybe I would have had to join there. But, again, it was one of those things where that was my story. That's how I got into the business.
Well, you got like an old school nitty gritty down and dirty type of experience with learning how to train and being outside and constantly running around doing drills. What would you say were pieces of advice that Kalua gave you starting out that you can recall and have still applied to today, all these years later?
Well, as much as advice as just learning right from wrong or learning it, through one man's vision. So, I mean, it was one of those things where he had probably been wrestling maybe about 3 years at that time and just pretty much taught me the way he was taught. And then, once you start having matches and you intertwine with other guys that have been taught different ways, but it's all relative in the end. Like, now you have guys there's a million wrestling schools, so they're pretty much taught a certain way. But you still have, there's really no two schools that will teach you the same way. The general information it is, the basic it is, but maybe like now the mindset is different on how to put a match together because it's transpired so much in the last, I just had my 40-year anniversary, in-ring
Congratulations.
anniversary. So, I mean, yeah, that's a lifetime.
Yeah, when you're constantly doing drills and constantly like running the ropes and everything, you want to make sure that you execute everything correctly. Repetition is always key, wanting to make sure that you know what you're doing and you're working with your opponent, you're working safe, and everybody's protected. So you have to make sure that you're working with your opponent and doing it the right way. It's like a dance.
It is. It's an art form. It's a dance, and that's exactly what it is. And stuff happens in the ring that you can't control, and that's the truth. But with him, it was basically proper, like locker room etiquette, the right from wrong. Shaking everybody's hand when you get in the locker room, And that thing that's pretty much lasted the test of time. I can honestly say, you know, 90% of that still happens now. I mean, the young guys for the most part are taught good etiquette to where they pretty much will do the right thing. They know pretty much right from wrong just from the age of their trainers and the trainers that have been around as well. So that has lasted the test of time for the most part as well, which is a great thing. It's a great thing. If they're taught etiquette the way I was taught etiquette, and pretty much, you still have some that aren't, but I mean for the majority they are, which is great.
You want to be in the locker room around veterans that have been around for so long because they've got that experience, that knowledge that they can pass on to the young talents, and that hopefully they can grow and be, get the torch passed to them. And then they're the big guys in the locker room that they're able to carry it forward. So it's important that you're around people.
You hope so. Yeah, you always want to see the business grow and just, and really, really, really progress. And that's the only way it can happen.
Well, eventually you make your debut, in-ring debut. Walk me through your first few matches. What were they like? Were you nervous?
The independents were rough. I mean, like I went to a show, my first independent show I went with, his name is Mike. Rocco Rock was there, Ted Petty's name, him as Rocco Rock. He told me, like, I wasn't really trained yet. And he said to me, he goes, hey, Mike introduced me as his protege. And he says, that's good. He goes, I run shows. And he says, when I run my next show, I'll put you guys against each other, which I was so excited. I didn't sleep for a week. I'm like, wow, I have my first match and I'm not even really trained yet. I really wasn't even trained yet. So like I went home the next day, I ordered tights and boots. And there was one company in Ohio that made everybody's gear. I ordered my stuff the next day, and I was bugging Mike every chance I got to have him come over to the house and work out in the backyard. But I didn't really get decent until I went to Memphis in 1988, where you're wrestling 6 days a week. Before that, you only got, you got decent amount of work, but you didn't get better until you were able to drill over and over and over. And that's what the schools have now. They run their kids ragged, which is the only way to get better. And these kids, after a couple months, they can do all the moves. I mean, it's drilled into their heads and their bodies just through repetition to where, these guys know how to wrestle. They might not know how to work yet, so to speak, but they know all the moves quickly, very quickly. So that's half the battle right there.
Yeah, repetition. I mean, that's what's important. That's what you have to do and be able to retain all that information is just keep doing it, keep practicing it, because it'll just come quickly to you once you do it enough times.
And that's what the schools offer. That's what all the schools offer now, which is a great thing. It's a great, great thing.
And Memphis was such a great territory for you to learn and practice your craft, and because a lot of people got their start in Memphis and crafted be able to really cut their teeth there. What was it like working in that?
It was a dream come true. It was. I started a week before Scott Steiner, Scotty, Raven, Scotty the Body, Johnny Flamingo. He's the one that got me in. He was here on the East Coast. He came out of Larry Sharp's school, so we became good friends on the Indies. And he told me he was heading down there, and he was going to try and get me hired, which he did. About a couple months later, Jerry Lawler, Jeff Jarrett, Max Payne, Gary Young. Then you had all these guys. They would do the trade-offs with World Class, with the Von Erichs, and all those guys would come in on Monday nights. And, just incredible talent to work with and just get started in the business, because that was my first territory. It was phenomenal because, you're wrestling 6 days a week and you're wrestling some great guys, Gary Young, Billy Travis, just so many good Southern wrestlers. Brickhouse Brown was my first angle, was with him the first day into the territory. And it was just nothing but great memories.
Yeah, like when you're around a lot of these guys, they're passing that wisdom to you. They're lifting you up so that eventually you start making your way to the bigger promotions. And you were with ECW for a period of time as well. What was it like working there?
That was just short lived. What it was basically, them being out of Philly. Um, we worked for the company prior, when they started, like Joe Goodhart, pretty much sold it to Todd Gordon, and Todd Gordon got the ECW started. We were pretty much in there for the Joe Goodhart era. And then when Paul Heyman took over, it was only a couple shows because they were, at the time, I was back on the Indies, and it was this was actually after I went to WCW. So timeline would be Puerto Rico was 91 for about a year into WCW, which was October of 92. And then ECW didn't happen until like 94. So what they were trying to get started, and as a good group of guys, it's just they didn't have any stability. The problem was they were canceling a lot of shows to start. So I was really established on the Indies by then, coming off WCW. I was getting a lot of work. So I was giving up shows to take their dates just to get canceled. So I got to the point where it was like, you're like one time, two times, three times. And then we did a title switch where I won the tag belts with Tommy Dreamer from Tony Stetson and Johnny Hotbody. And then there was a run of like canceled shows, and just they did a phantom title change. I think it was to Taz and Shane Douglas. The match never happened. And then I never went back. That was it. So it was short-lived, but there's no regrets whatsoever, because right after that I went to WWF.
Yeah, you're in WWE for quite a few years, wrestling Monday Night Raw. Got a chance to work some pay-per-views. Even had some high-profile matches working with guys like Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, even wrestling The Rock back when he was Rocky Maivia. What was it like getting the chance to work in the WWE back then?
Well, the WCW, it all started there in like I said, it was September of 92. That was my first main stage. I was brought in the tag team with Tom Zink, and we had a great run. Again, all the typical talent, like Flair and the Horsemen and Sting. And, I see some of the matches that were filmed in WCW, Vader, Chris Benoit, Paul Orndorff, Bobby Eaton. I mean, the list is never ending. And the guys that got me in WWF were because of the time in WCW. Jim Ross and J.J. Dillon. So when the time came in May of 96 and the phone rang, I got hired there, and I was with Rock probably no less. We probably wrestled no less than 40 times, because we would do like, when you're on the road and you're on a 10-day loop, that's 10 matches right there in a row. So, I mean, altogether, I wrestled him. His first match on Raw was against me, and probably 40 times. And then Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, great matches with Mark Marrow, as well as Flash Funk. So, like, they were my main guys while I was there.
What was The Rock like to be around backstage during this time?
He was great. I mean, he was young. He was just happy to be there. I mean, he was just, we weren't dealing with the movie star. We weren't dealing with, he was just one of the guys. As time went on, the push just made him a bigger and bigger and bigger. Then they turn him heel, and it's a whole couple of years later, everything's different. I mean, he was pushed strong, and as a heel, and I got out of there before all the catchphrases and all that. I was kind of like a little bit before that.
You were kind of like in between, like part of the new generation era, like kind of on the cusp of the Attitude Era, because during this time, it was like a time of transition.
Oh, it was definitely the Attitude Era. It definitely was, because we were right in the Monday Night Wars, right away. Everything was that Monday Night Wars was every week. It was definitely the Attitude Era for sure.
What was it like being a part of that era, like knowing that you guys are going head to head against WCW, and this is like a ratings war for brand supremacy?
they, from what I remember, they pretty much won almost every week. I don't remember when it finally turned it around, but I remember being part of, like, coming in second. Not that nobody really talked about it. It's more stuff that you heard like after the fact. I mean, because you still had a great roster. I mean, you still had tons of talent. It was just they were getting momentum because everybody was leaving WWE, WWF to go to WCW, not really the other way around. So they were throwing tons and tons of money around, and you were just seeing like just mass exodus, and that's really what changed the ratings.
The cool thing about wrestling is that over the years you have so many great characters and gimmicks, and I know that you had a couple of gimmicks that you portrayed in the WWE during this time. What were they like? Tell me about them, and what was it like portraying those characters?
Well, they brought me in as the Salvatore Sincere. The gimmicks were not pushed. They were not. They were just. I'll tell you the story behind it. So when we were hired, um, and before I even stepped foot in the office in Stanford, it was in Dave Meltzer's kayfabe sheet. It said, Tom Brandi, Alex Porto, Bill Irwin, Tony Anthony, and Tracy Smothers have been hired to a just above jobber status, were the words used, because they were going to second and 2 and 3 shows a night, and they needed strong veterans to fill in all the gaps. And I'm like, wow. I mean, talk about a slap in the face before you even wrestle one match, you're already labeled. And it was just disheartening. It really was. It was just like, I'll show them. I mean, when you have a label on you before you start, they only allow you to get to a certain point. But the silver lining was, we got there. Everybody, could work out of that group of 5. We named ourselves. I think I came up with the name, the Kiss of Death 5. We already had the Kiss of Death before we ever started. So everybody was great. I mean, Tracy Smothers is never going to have a bad match. Alex Porto can work with anybody. They saddled Bill Irwin with this horrible gimmick because they made him wear these like boots that were shaped like ice skates. So the bottom of the wrestling boots had this real high, real thick sole, but it was tapered almost to a point like an ice skate. I'm like, dude, how the hell do you even walk in those things? It was brutal. It really was. And then you had a guy with the plumber, which was brutal. And, Tony Anthony with the plumber, because he was a plumber. His dad was a plumber. Everything was like an inside joke on with the names, all except mine. Mine was the only one where there was like Bruce Pritchard came up with it. And I loved it. I mean, the colors were great. I loved it. I love working heel. I was able to control matches, get all my stuff in, have great matches with Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, The Rock, Flash Funk, stuff I never would have been able to do otherwise. And then I was pretty much a baby face with Mark Marrow. So then, you really turn it up as a baby face, because they turn him heel and just made the most of it. So out of that group of guys, I was the only one that got a second contract. I felt like I accomplished a lot. I really, really, really worked hard, and everybody else was let go and I was kept on. So that was the main accomplishment of being there. But you still felt like you never got your just due. I mean, to this day, every fan that I meet at a fan fest, they're like, oh, I loved your gimmick. They never pushed it enough. You should have been pushed so much more, like a Razor Ramon character. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much wasn't in the cards. It had nothing to do with me. It was like kind of like a label you were given before you even started.
Yeah, mentioned Mark Marrow. You were kind of a part of that the early part of that storyline with him and Sable. What was it like working with Mark?
That was great. I mean, only because Sable was like the number one most over person in the company, and just they never finished the angle correctly. I mean, I should have like even had one roll up victory, something. Even if I like something gave like one quick roll up, and then he like beat me up and left me laying. that one roll up would have went a long way. Basically, they got to the point. Again, I was a veteran babyface, and he was a new. They just turned him heel, so he went to the wrestling school for a while to learn how to work heel. They put him with me for a while because I was a babyface pretty much my whole career, to give him some experience before they moved him over to. There was never like a good finish of our feud, and then they just moved him over to Goldust because you had Luna, and was feuding with with Sable, and then you had Goldust, and that was the angle they went into after mine. But it was great while it lasted. They should they should have finished it a little bit better.
Yeah, it's always frustrating when plans change and you're involved in a storyline that seemed like was working out and they just pivoted in a different direction. It's got to be hard.
Yeah, well, we worked a lot. Me and Mark worked a lot, and he had good heat because he'd do the whole abuse of Sable, and any kind of abuse that he put on her, the fans really got up for. And I was primed to be the knight in shining armor. It was prime. They were dying to see her just leave him for me, and even if it was short lived, it was set up perfect. They never did it. They never did it.
How long were you with WWE?
Well, technically 4 years of payroll. So like they're known, and WCW as well. They will pay you. See, at the time, they didn't want you going to the other company. So even if they didn't have anything for you, they would just keep you at home and pay you. So, I mean, I got a paycheck for 4 years.
Wow, 4 years. I mean, that's quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I wrestled about 2 because it was long breaks. There were good breaks in between. Like they would forget you're even on the payroll. It was funny, but they did it with a lot of guys. And WCW they did it. They did it even more. Like they did it way before I even worked there. They had guys on payroll they didn't even know were still working for the company. It was like an ongoing running joke.
It's crazy. Over the years, who would you say have been some of your favorite opponents that you've gotten to be in the ring with?
Well, name wise, like I said, when you go main stage, it means so much more. Because like a guy like King Kalua, we being the fact that he broke me in, we've wrestled, feel like I've wrestled him 1,000 times over 40 years. Because, that was always my go-to opponent, and we always gave a great match. So promoters always booked it, so on the indies. But then, when you go to the main stage and when you go 15 minutes live with The Undertaker, that's a match for the ages. Like I'll watch that match in 40 more years from now. And then, like you had mentioned, Shawn Michaels, Jeff Jarrett, Goldust, Vader, and the Mark Marrows of the world, and Ahmed Johnson, and all the guys in WCW. Just like I just watched this morning, it was me and Tom Zink against Paul Orndorff and Vader, and it's on. Like I appreciate it more now than I did then. Like, you look back now and you're like, man, that was really good. Because you're critical of your own stuff more than anything else. But I can't watch like an indie match. I just can't watch something on YouTube from the indies just because of how bad it was filmed and the footage and everything. I can't watch a single match. But WCW, Japan, or WWF, depending on the opponent, I could definitely watch. Like Flash Funk were probably the most I ever did in matches, just because that's what he called. He does. He has a lot of stuff in his matches.
It's always good when you have people that their styles real well. I know people have said the term, it's like a night off.
Well, no nights off there because you got to bring it. You got to bring it. There's no nights off there. Maybe on the house shows when you're working, like a lazier guy or a guy that does a whole lot less. But if the TV cameras are rolling, you're moving. You're moving.
Yeah, you got to work as hard as you can and try to keep up.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, night off is that's a a commonly used term in wrestling. And it is. In a lot of ways, it is.
Do you keep up with the current product at all today? Are there anybody that you watch out for? They're like, I really like this person's work.
No, not at all. I mean, the way for me to really follow it is just you really can follow it like I'm on Facebook mostly, and you could follow the little bit of the angles or the clips on there. But I mean, these guys are all great, way better wrestlers than when I was there. They just do so much more. They're just do way, way, way more than when we were there. Thank God, because I liked it way better then because I just liked the storylines and like the kind of stuff that I grew up as a wrestling fan, which that's why I have no interest now. But I mean, the guys, especially like AEW, they almost do like they do too much. Like when I see, all that on TV, it's just I just can't watch it. It's tough to watch. It really is. I'd rather be entertained. I'd rather be entertained.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, definitely. Just because, I mean, you want to be, you want to see a guy that has a good look, like a guy like Dolph Ziggler, guys like that can wrestle with anybody, have the look, have the ability, but also could tell a story, just a little, he brings a little bit more than a lot of the other guys. And, it's hard to watch 150-pound guys that slap their leg and do a million flips. That's a huge detractor for me, but nobody cares what I think anyway. So we'll leave it at that.
I want to switch gears and talk about some of the stuff you've been able to do outside of wrestling. You've been very involved with different charity organizations or have participated in different functions over the years. What kinds of things have you been able to do to help give back to your community?
Well, you're always approached. You're always approached. And it's just one of those things where, like, I liked it when you're in the main federations, they would set stuff up for you. So they would give you like a booking sheet. And on the booking sheet, like if you had to meet and talk to kids groups and do signings and meet the, like the underprivileged children. And, it just comes with the job. It really does. Like even where I live now, you'll still get, I had a family friend of ours asked to have a girl stop, she brought her to the house just last Sunday because she had, like autism and she's kind of crawled into a shell since something triggered her during COVID, and she doesn't really communicate, but she loves wrestling. So our friend asked us if she could come over, and my wrestling figure, I have a wrestling figure just came out, my first one in 40 years, just came out, and they actually bought one. My friends went online and bought one to give to her for me to sign it at my house last Sunday. And like she had the biggest smile and gave her a couple wrestling things I had in the house. And she was so happy. And that was just like without any effort on my part. That was just something that a friend of ours just said, thought of her, thought of me, and just said, this girl, she's very limited and, very, very withdrawn, so to speak. And she just loves wrestling. And I said, sure, bring her over. Bring her over. I signed the figure for her, and she just was almost in tears.
Gosh, that's so emotional. That's heartwarming. It really is, because you never know what people are going through in life. And so somebody that's a big wrestling fan and they happen to know someone that is a wrestler, the timing couldn't have been perfect.
But I mean, this is something that you don't even plan. This stuff happens for us on a weekly or, daily, weekly, monthly basis to where it's like, hey, I know a wrestler. Well, from where I live, there's nobody else around. Like it's one of those things, like if you mention wrestler, the fact that I've been in the general vicinity for, my whole life, there's only one person they're referring to, and it's me. So if something can be done or, something for charity or a guest speaker or whatever else, I make it happen.
Have you been able to do like any motivational speaking functions? Have you been able to go
all the time? Not recently, because a lot like what Mark Mero does is amazing. So we've all been asked to do those things over the years. So it just seems like I don't know. Schools are so again they're so scared of every little thing. God forbid if a professional wrestler comes in the school. Everybody's so scared anymore. It's so you got to be politically correct. God forbid you don't know what's going to come out of the person's mouth or whatever. But you know, Mark has built up such a great following at what he does. Good for him. Good for him. But yeah, I've done plenty. I've done plenty over the years.
Yeah, I mean, kids are the future, and I really do feel like, if you can inspire them to do good in the world, their success, it'll go a long way. It really does. And to have that kind of opportunity to be there for them and coach them and guide them along in their life, they're going to remember that.
And there'll be handicapped people they bring to the shows. Like we see them a lot of the independent shows. They'll set it up. They'll bring, a group of handicapped, give them tickets and bring them to the show. Different, they'll have different handicaps or whatever. And you know what? You really enjoy it at the show because they love the live wrestling. So like, really, that's where you want to do it. I'd rather do it there than go to high schools and, you know, you got the teachers or get their nose, they're looking the other way and they're always afraid every little word coming out of your mouth. When they come to the live wrestling shows, they're there. They know what they're going to see. They know what to expect. And then you sign autographs for them and you give them, some pictures or whatever. It's it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it seems like when you go to these shows, these independent shows, it's very intimate because you have that opportunity to actually meet fans. It's not as big as like going to a big fan fest, and you're able to shake their hands, talk to them, hey, how you doing? Be there for them if they need any help or anything like that. So kudos to you for being able to be there for people. And really, the independent scene right now, it is hot, white hot. So being able to be involved with that, it is an amazing feeling.
It is. There's a lot of great promotions. I mean, there's always been great promotions on the East Coast. So yeah, I mean, they've just continued on, and just the fact that I've been doing this for 40 years is I gotta remind myself sometimes it's been that long, and it's so hard to believe.
What is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy?
Just to look in the kid's face, just to get a smile from a kid that has had a tough life. And you're not doing anything to do it. It's not like you're killing yourself or making a huge effort. You're just shaking their hand or taking a picture with them or putting your arm around them or giving them something, just knowing what they've been through. And if you could make them happy just for that little bit of time, but they're always going to remember you if you give them the picture and they put it in their bedroom and they hang it up and little stuff like that goes a long way, really does. And you really
Absolutely.
have to make no effort to do it. There's no effort on our part.
No, not at all. Are there any causes that you're very passionate about?
I take them as they come. I really do because I don't have any. I don't know. You get hit with different ones. So anything to do with the kids and the youth and any kind of the youth groups, anything that makes their life better. You know what I mean?
Well, Tom, before we go, want to give a little bit of a plug here. I know you're going to be involved with a fan festival coming up soon in St.
Very
Louis.
excited. Very excited. Very. And I'll tell you a quick story. It's been 40 years in the making because, like I had mentioned, this figure that came out. It's my only thing I've ever had to promote. Only thing I ever wanted to promote. It came out about 6 weeks, well, about 2 months now. Hastel Toys believed in me, and it's the first figure I've had in 40 years. So it's a reason now to do these conventions. Before I was very, very laid back with those. I didn't really take the convention bookings. Herb Simmons is a phenomenal man. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big festival. I know of several people that have gone to it every year. They've had nothing but great things to say about it. A lot of people are going to be on there. So check it out and don't miss out if you can.
Yeah, if you can give the details, I can't click on my phone to give all the details, but if you can give the details, May 8th and 9th. I know I'm flying into St. Louis, but I believe that the actual show is in Illinois.
Yeah, it's Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling Fan Fest. Lots of people are going to be there. Mick Foley, I believe, is going to be on that show. Rick McCord, Demolition, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot of different people that are going to be on that card.
Yeah, I think that list is over 40 now. I saw the updated poster. It is crazy. I really, really can't wait. Two of my best friends in the business, Al Snow and Hugh Morris, are there, and Austin Idol. Austin Idol became very close friends in the last year, and great guy. I got him booked on a bunch of these conventions coming up. So his great stories, and he just a great asset to the wrestling business.
It's always good to see people that you haven't seen in years, and because you reconnect with them after so long. It truly is like a reunion.
Oh, it's always every convention is a reunion. It really is, and I really get along with everybody. So there's never anybody where I'm like not wanting to see or dreading to see or anything like that. There's so many guys that you always have that connection with, especially like if you were on the main stage with those guys. Al Snow was one of my best friends when I was in WWF, and Owen Hart, God bless his rest his soul, he was my best friend in WWF when Brett and everybody left to go to WCW. Owen was left behind, and we became best friends. And I think about Owen all the time. But again, these guys here, the convention is going to be it's phenomenal. The talent is second to none.
Check it out, FanFest SICW next month. Do not miss out. Tom, I want to say thank you for coming on to Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find out more about you on social media? If there's anything you want to promote, feel free.
Stanley, like I said, the only thing I have, if anybody knows they're going to be coming to any of the conventions, I have 5 conventions coming up for the rest of the year, and it makes me feel great if they could pick up my figure, only because, like I said, it took a lot of work and a lot of years, and I'm very proud of it. And they're doing well. They're really doing well. And like I said, it's hasteltoys.com. And, we can always sign everything else, but to me, that's my number one. I love signing the encyclopedia and the WWF encyclopedia, as well as the wrestling figurine is great.
I'm looking forward to seeing how things are going to turn out, and hope we bump into each other at a future convention.
Absolutely. Always feel free. I'd love to meet you.
Likewise. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.
Take care, Stanley. You have a great week.
You too. You're more than welcome to come back as well.
Always a pleasure. No problem at all.
All right. Take care.
Take care, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.